Hi folks, you're with Tacitus today at your Pushback channel, and thank you for joining this radio live stream. I'm just going over here to close the door. So in this essay I'd like to talk about concepts of merit and concepts of social mobility. Now, certainly when I was at school, and which, isn't that long ago, for goodness sakes, when I was at school, the idea of social mobility was very much how, in the Western world at least, how things are viewed. Now, it didn't matter where you were born in society. You could be the lowest born, or the middle born, or the upper born, or the rich people, the poor people. It didn't matter. You had a mechanism for social mobility, and you could cast off your low-born sort of status in a number of ways. Now, there were, the primary way was to do well at school. Now, well at school didn't mean you had to come first in every exam. It meant that you could find your true vocation or your true calling. So, some people may be, very gifted musicians or artists, or may have a particular skill in a specific area. Maybe they were very good carpenters, or they were great mathematicians, but they showed sufficient signs when they were young that they had a natural ability or aptitude in a certain area. So merit through doing well at school didn't mean that, again, you had to come first in every exam. That wouldn't hurt, by the way, but you could develop or be discovered to have specific abilities. Now, as I think back to sort of the schools that I went through, one kid was a soccer player, and he had particular gifts in the area. He went on to become quite a well-known soccer player, sort of probably the second tier. Like, he wasn't an international big name, but he did pretty well for himself. Another guy was a rugby league player, which is a game played in like Australia and England and so on. It's not widespread. It's not much for a sport in the United States, but was a rugby league player, and he went on to be a member of a number of championship teams. There was another guy who became a design engineer, and he co-designed a number of things that were patented and later on became quite well-known products and so on. Now, it didn't mean that these kids were good in every subject or were good in other areas. Some had specific. One guy, for example, became quite well known at writing musical scores for TV shows and some movies and things like that, and he did very well out of that. But you couldn't say he did well in other subjects. But in that he excelled, and that was discovered at school, that he had this aptitude. That guy came from quite a well-to-do household, so once that aptitude was discovered, his parents sort of poured money into that, and bought him a fancy piano and anything he wanted, coaching, and so. But anyway, he had that natural aptitude that the other people, I don't have that natural aptitude. But merit was the way. If you wanted to do better for yourself and to again, move your status within society and go from the housing tenements into the middle class, or if you're in the middle class, to go to the waterfront mansions of the wealthy and that sort of thing. Merit was a way to do it. Now, it didn't mean that patronage or cronyism didn't exist. It did, but it's the relative extent of those negative factors, because they are negative. It's the relative extent of those compared to merit. And in the West, merit played a much bigger proportion of how people moved around through the classes than did anything else. Now, again, having been very well traveled around the world, once you get outside of the Western world, cronyism is the sole determinant. Patronage and cronyism is the sole determinant of getting ahead. You may get the very rare odd one or two that get somewhere, but that's only because they're useful to the people in charge, not because they've achieved anything, independently in their own right. They're still just technically well qualified flunkies to do the fetching and carrying, and that's all. But in the West, it was different. Now, that's why the West was rich. People say, well, why was the West rich? That's why, because merit played a much bigger proportion of. So the people who were getting to the top and making the decisions and starting up the businesses and who were doing the hiring and the promoting and the rewarding and so on, they were not all of them, but more than in any other society, it was decided on merit. And again, I look back to because merit no longer is so rarely an issue now that it's to be non-existent. But going back to those times, which again are within my lifetime, it was considered the only way to achieve social mobility within my lifetime. So that's how quickly things have changed away from that. If I look at that during those days, there was still the cronyism still went on. The CEO still appointed his useless dickhead nephew to a cosy job. So that still happened. It just didn't happen, or it happened in a minority of cases. In the majority, even if it wasn't majority, again more than anywhere else, it was merit decided the outcome. Particularly with strictly pass or fail exams. Merit plays an absolute role in things like that. Now, there are also sort of subsidiaries of, if you like, areas of merit that sort of formed virtuous cycles and circles. when people are progressed through based on merit, they're more likely to identify and reward others who've achieved that by merit. So merit creates merit in a virtuous cycle there. But once you break that, where you get people who are not appointed on merit, then they tend not to employ or reward or promote or whatever other people. They tend to reward non-meritorious people and gather them around them. So when the dumbass gets the job of CEO, for example, then they'll appoint people who are dumber than them, and then dumber than them again, and so on. So you get then a whole organisation just full of low IQ morons because the people at the top were placed there by that. Now, the modern day Marxist concept of victimhood and oppression and evil straight white men and so on has created a strictly anti-merit society. That merit itself is now viewed as white supremacy, if not Hitler. I mean, if you think, well, merit is the basis for rewarding and promoting and hiring people, then you are Hitler. I mean, it's simple as that. That's the insanity of our times. But with that goes wealth creation, because when the brightest, most capable, highest achieving people rise to the top, they're the ones that are starting the businesses. They're the ones that are most likely to have successful businesses. They're the ones most likely to be innovating, to be inventing, to be hiring other people and training them to be successful and showing them by example how hard work and so on can give you social mobility. So social mobility came from doing okay at school, or it came from working hard. And not everybody did equally well at school. Some people were very hard workers, and they're very determined and very focused, and they did well for themselves. But it was still merit that got them there. It wasn't that they were the proverbial black lesbian trading on the victimhood. But today we've got the victimhood, and just looking at in Australia, where there's a new government department that was set up a while back to assist minorities, as they refer to it, in starting up their own businesses. It's decided there's not enough minorities who own businesses. Now, is that because they don't want to, or they're lazy, or this or that? No. It's racism. Hitler is personally stopping those minorities from having their own businesses. And as a government with a bunch of hysterical Marxist lesbians running it, then we have to do something about that, because it's fucking oppression. Those fucking fascist Nazis are holding back those minorities from having their own business. We have to fight back against Hitler. So they started shoveling shitloads of money into minority people starting up their own businesses. And they were really talking people in, people who wouldn't have done it naturally or organically, are being talked into it, encouraged by, look, it's free money, it's zero risk. If the business doesn't work out, you just walk away and you don't owe a penny to anybody. Now, those same sort of things weren't being offered to white people. you had to be a member of a minority to be able to get that. So instead, resources are taken away from white people who would have made a successful go of it, the straight white male, and they've been given to people who are the least likely to make a successful go of it, and telling them, look, it doesn't matter if it doesn't work out. You can just walk away. We'll give you more money to try again later. This is taxpayer money, by the way. Now, if you look at the success rate of these businesses, it's like less than a tenth of the success rate of straight white males. So if you were an investor looking at where you're going to put money, there's no way you would put money into these sort of things, but yet they did. And some of the craziest ideas, one of them was a company that was going to make lesbian surfboards, and money was being thrown at them to get a business going. I mean, you couldn't make this up. But those were the sort of businesses that were being subsidised with taxpayer money. But it wasn't just that money was being put into those things that were, minimal possibility of any success coming out of it. It's that money was taken away from where it was most likely to be successful. And that's the thing in a society when it goes anti or anti-merit. It doesn't just put money into lunatic initiatives like the lesbian surfboard, but it takes money away from where it's most likely to be productive and most likely to achieve. Now, in the wider scheme of things, when there's a number of successful men out there who are doing well, whether it be in corporate life or their own business or any field of endeavour, then they also then provide social mobility for lower class women, and then so women can marry a guy who comes from the middle or lower classes is most, not always, but most likely to marry someone from a similar class or background, and then that creates social mobility then for the woman, marrying the guy, and then for their children in turn are given. So that then creates a new class of socially mobile people. Not that all the kids are going to end up sort of fully emulating the parents or anything like that. It doesn't mean that, but quite a few of them will. So that's how you create and build and foster a middle class based on merit. Now, merit can come in various forms. You've got hard work. You've got people who are bright or particularly gifted in something. You've got people who are maybe particularly good looking or whatever. So there are various types of merit. I was a guy who became a journalist, and he used to write, quite good editorial. This is a guy from the school I was at, and but I remember he wasn't that good at anything else, but he was good at sort of writing stories, and so he ended up going into that. Won some awards for it as well. So there's various forms and types of merit, but the concept of merit itself, you need to be the best or at the top of your field, and then you can go on and do other things. But the people that are doing well in that way, they're the ones that are finding the cure for cancer. They're the ones that are sending rockets to the moon. They're the ones that are inventing new ways to do this, that, or the next thing, or new technologies which make life better for everybody. But when you reverse that and say, well, let's just make sure the people at the top are all the proverbial black lesbian, just so we have some sort of perverse, twisted, insane form of social equity, then all those things, those innovations, the cure for cancer, they do not happen. They stop happening. And then so all our lives are accordingly then worse. Now we're in an era where merit is based purely on victimhood and this, again, the Marxist concept of social equity. So our lives are becoming worse and poorer and less diverse as a consequence of this. So in fact, Western society is going in reverse, and that reversal of fortunes is in direct proportion to the extent to which merit is being crushed or seen as insanely and crazily seen as some some white supremacist thing. You've been a Tacitus today, your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.